Okay, so welcome everyone. This is another event from the Macquarie University Incubator. My name is Felipe. I am the Innovation Programs Lead here at the Incubator. And today at the Leaders, Innovators, and Disruptors virtual series, we have Harry Hubbert. He's going to talk a little bit about the lessons he learned from a startup growing in uncertain times. We know that 2020 has been full of uncertain times. Some startups are struggling while others are thriving. And we will hear from Harry what lessons he learned when growing his startup and a little bit about his background as well. So before we kick off, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land. There's a quick video here for you, and then we'll kick right off.
Welcome. We acknowledge the traditional custodians of Macquarie University land, the Warramargal clan of the Darug Nation, whose cultures and customs have nurtured this land since the Dreamtime. We pay our respects to elders past, present and future. We welcome people of all nations and all faiths. Kwai Bidja, Jamna Payala Janawi. Come here, we speak together. We have 60,000 years of archaeological evidence of Aboriginal habitation at Lake Mungo and 20,000 years in Ryde. We have great antiquity. Today, hundreds of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people graduate from Macquarie University. The Darug Nation had famous leaders such as Chief Yarramundi, Naraginji, Colby and Maria Locke. Many of the descendants of these Darug people live today amongst you. We celebrate with you our ongoing attachment and custodianship of this country. We celebrate the achievements of Macquarie University.
Oh, I like this video. Awesome. Okay, so for who's new here, welcome to the Incubator. We are based here out of the Macquarie University campus in Macquarie Park. For those of you who never heard about the Incubator, so the Macquarie University Incubator aims to create entrepreneurship programs that train and nurture innovation. And we support the growth and the success of impactful solutions to the world's biggest problems. So we have quite a few startups here with very interesting value propositions. We also support students, we support researchers. We are this mix that is very curious and very creative and very supportive of innovation in all its shapes and forms. It's been a very interesting time for us. Our community is growing. We have so much going on. So if you're not aware of what's going on here in the Incubator, there's heaps of ways you can get involved. One of them are these virtual events, the Leaders, Innovators, and Disruptor series, but we also have our newsletter. Jump onto our website, check our companies, and connect with our startups. There's a lot happening here. Okay, so first of all, let me introduce Harry. So Harry Hubbert, he's the Chief Technology Officer at Greenroom Robotics, a thriving Australian company developing cutting-edge computing solutions and machine learning software for Australian and international clients. So Harry just recently completed 9 years in the Royal Australian Navy as an engineer officer specializing in innovation in maritime robotics. He studied naval architecture in Tasmania, and after his graduation, he started his military training, followed by a number of postings at sea, with the last 5 years dedicated to developing innovation frameworks, new workforce models, and implementing innovative ideas to real-world military capability. So that's a very interesting background. I'm super curious to know more about it. Today, Harry is going to be talking about the lessons learned around growing a company in uncertain times. So without further ado, Harry, over to you.
Thank you so much for that introduction, Felipe. I'll just share my screen so everyone else can see it. Everyone can see that one, all right?
Beautiful.
Awesome. Great, awesome. Thank you so much for the introduction. And it sounds like an awesome incubator, and I hope I can get there one day soon when all this craziness is over and I can travel again. So a little bit about me, in addition. So yeah, naval architect, so designing ships and submarines. Got a passion for programming because I thought it could, or saw that it could do things for me and I could be lazier. So that's where it really got into it and really started learning about it. And from then, self-taught in the programming languages and processes I do now. So somehow I've gone from designing submarines to programming machine learning, but I guess that's all about life, and that's what usually happens. So I'm a textbook fast talker, so I will try and slow down because that's a known thing for me. And I'll be sort of watching the questions, but I'll definitely try and answer all the questions I can at the end. It's not a massive presentation. I recently read a study from Stanford University saying that it's essentially impossible to read and listen and remember everything. So I try not to have too much words on my presentations. Anyway, so who are we? So Greenroom Robotics is a collection of engineers that was founded about 3 years ago. So a lot of the background is maritime, but somehow Greenroom's gone into agriculture software as well as payloads for aircraft around the world. So it's been a crazy journey, but we are growing quick in these weird times, which is, I think it's a testament to the community as a whole. It's a great community in Australia of the small business and subject matter experts, and I'll be talking about sort of these lessons learned throughout this presentation. We're not a typical startup, I guess, in the terms, as we've never sought funding or seed funding from investors or anything like that. We have grown purely organically from bigger and bigger jobs and teams coming on and learning as we go. So it's been quite a natural growth, which is has its pros and cons, I guess, but has also allowed us to pick and choose the projects that we do that really meet our vision and can be, we think, are beneficial and fun and exciting, because we think if the people aren't excited about doing that project, then it's not going to be very successful, or it's going to be pushing it uphill. So we really like to sort of pick out and find tasks, jobs, technology that really interest our team and really go after them. So the vision of Greenroom Robotics on the screen here, essentially to develop innovative solutions across all domains, leveraging edge computing, data analytics, and the latest tools and research to make best-in-class products and software for our partners and clients. Bit of a mouthful, I know, but essentially we like to develop innovative solutions. Don't matter if it's subsea, sea, land, air, space, we don't mind, but we are definitely, a lot of our research and development goes into putting this awesome technology that's machine learning, other subsets of AI, big data analytics onto small embedded devices, and removing the need for things like servers, the cloud, etc. Doing it all on the device that allows us to run things underwater, in space, out at sea without needing internet connection. So you would have seen that a lot of the stuff has been going towards cloud-based computing, which is great for people like your home network and your computers and your phone apps. But as soon as someone needs something that can operate in really harsh environments that definitely don't have any reception, then that's really where we like working, and where I think our value proposition really is. So Greenroom really provides ourselves. So our values are curiosity, innovation, integrity, and dedication. So we sort of try to exceed and meet and exceed all our expectations of our clients and partners, but really reputation is what we pride ourselves on. We there's a few people with military backgrounds, and it's always like you always taught in sort of the military backgrounds, is that you're only as good as your reputation, and people only trust you as far as your reputation goes. So that's always been brought across with us as well, and really doing what we say we're going to do, and exceeding what we promise. So how we do business. So we are a very low footprint company. We have a small space in Melbourne and in Sydney. So we don't have very many people that work in an office, and most people prefer to work from home, which is awesome for us because low overheads, we can keep things agile, and it allows people to work in the environment that they choose. So that's really great. So our model is built off small, high-performing teams. So like Jeff Bezos once said, if you can't feed the entire team with a pizza, the team's too big. So we go off a similar model where we have teams of 4 to maybe 6 per team, and they're dedicated to that project and nothing else. So they work on that. They're assembled based on their skill set. So we bring in the best, and we try and keep people working in their lane. So if someone's responsible for X part of the project, that X doesn't really leak over much into the Y, but we then rely on our strong foundation of processes and policies to make sure that everything can mesh together at the end, but that allows people to work at the stuff and be trusted to do the work that they said they're going to do, and minimizes the management needed for the team. So it seems to work really well with us, and it gets sort of things going. So like I said before, we are quite lucky where we can be quite picky with the projects and choose things that really excite us. So we definitely apply for a lot. As all startups would know, you try and get as much as you can, but we try and only apply for things. So I guess money isn't, it's because we haven't got the funding and there's no real runway for us where we've got enough sort of there to keep people going. But if it ran out sort of tomorrow, then we'd have a bit of time there till we had to get the next job. But we wouldn't we're not stressed out about it, I guess, is the beauty of it. So we can pick and choose these projects that best fit our vision. But we also do regularly revisit our short and long-term goals. So especially in these uncertain times, I think it's pretty important where if things aren't working, you are just pushing up against a hill, but there's a I guess pivoting is another word for it. So really looking at what those options are and revisiting what you really want out of it and what your team wants to do as well, because they're the ones that are doing the work and getting the things done. So it's really revisiting, making sure that everyone's on board and happy with how it's going. So this is sort of the main slide. I think there's only one more, but what I really want to talk to, and this is where I guess I hope that this is sort of the information and stuff that would be useful for people watching in on this sort of incubator stuff. But I think it's a old one that everyone sort of says it, but finding good people and hiring has actually been our hardest thing. Finding people that are self-starters, self-learners, and don't mind being left alone, and they can budget their own time and break down a big problem into their daily tasks and work from home, because we don't have that office space. So I don't have the daily. Well, most of our projects have a daily catch up on virtual meetings like this, but they don't. It's not. I can't just walk over and say, "What are you doing? Hey, how are you going?" Stuff like that. Unless I interrupt them by calling them, etc. So finding those good people that has really been a big thing for us. A lot of it has come down to, in the end now, it's networking. So finding like through like so and so knows so and so who's looking for thing, and he's done this or she's done this. So it's really been useful to do that, as well as sort of refining our process of how we recruit and hire has been challenging. So like setting challenges, etc. It might look great on the resume. They've got all the degrees in the world, but when it comes down to it, they can't explain their ideas, or they can't work out a little bit outside their area. So it's been definitely a growth thing for the team. Networking again has been key to our growth. It's like the old adage, it's not what you know, it's who you know. It's definitely been a good thing. So getting out there, pushing, introducing people, making a point to reply to people that message us on LinkedIn, things like that, and follow up on things, and making sure we keep that personal connection and follow on, and also go the extra mile. So it's not a trivial task to develop some of our software, but developing these proof of concepts and setting up that good reputation of people that can really achieve is something that networking has allowed us to have follow-on jobs, and clients have said recommended us to other people. So keeping that good reputation and that network solid and growing it. So things like this incubator, things like that have been great. And that's also come down to a little bit to having good mentors. I personally have a few mentors and things like that, like having good people that can guide you. But those people are often people in other industries, etc. But you just never know where the opportunities are going to come from. We're doing some projects that we never thought we'd ever do, but it's just been so exciting and so great to sort of see these challenges and really understand it and solve these needs for people. And they're definitely the same thing. It leads into point 3. You're only good as a reputation. It only takes a second to ruin your reputation. So just keeping the whole team on board and on the same vision, and abiding by those principles and the values of curiosity, innovation, integrity, and dedication of Greenroom Robotics really is pushed into everyone. Negotiation was a funny one. We never really had to sort of do this sort of thing in our life. Like, we've been sort of senior engineers and managing projects, etc. But none of us at the start have really been in that negotiating large contracts or multi-year, so 5 to 10 year contracts and ongoing support and stuff like that. So negotiating that and knowing when to speak up, and knowing what we're providing / what's our lane, what's the other people's, and having the multi-input contracts is quite a unique skill. It might sound trivial, but there's a lot of really great podcasts out there actually that we that the management team listen to now, and that really actually taught us a lot. I can try and get a list of them actually if people are interested afterwards. I'll email to Felipe. But yeah, that was really useful to sort of listen to the TED Talks and the business talks and things like that, and learn about like how to sort of go into this sort of thing. Like from the start, little things like we used to provide all these specifications of what we can achieve, but if we'd never brought it up, they would have never asked it to do it. So we could have made life way easier for ourselves without providing what we could. Like it's this weird of what information you give out, what you keep close to you, and how you sort of talk. And I guess that leads into point 5 of the art of the proposal. So we used to do these, spend all night writing these really technical, massive presentations, and then kicked out. And they're like, "We don't know what you're talking about." And then our first big contract that we got was done off a 1-page summary that we wrote. And so we finally realized that people don't really care about how good we are technically. They just want to see how well we can phrase that in language that makes sense to them or they can understand. So that also comes down to, I think, that a lot of us we all are engineers. So the whole board, everyone's engineers, which makes things hard because anyone that knows a lot of engineers, which I'm sure you would, know they're not usually that great at the sort of the soft skills of the interpersonal communication, where which it should be, is actually essential for an engineer to be able to break an idea down to its core and explain that in a way that your audience is going to understand. Otherwise, they're going to switch off and not care. So that skill there, which I thought I was quite good at, being in the Navy and being an engineer, talking with executive people and things like that in a different world, it's still been another learning step in moving across to commercial and civilian sort of negotiations and talking and proposals, because it just wasn't something that I'd had any exposure to. So I guess exposure is great, but it's really great having people to bounce things off. So I'm thinking about doing this, or I'm thinking about going down this sort of path. I think that's essential. We've a lot of friends in Sydney and stuff like that we've known through universities and, again, networking, that have also gone through startups, and some of the behind us and some are way ahead of us. But having we try and once a month have a beer or something with them and have a chat and sort of say, "Oh, we're having this issue," or who's your accountant, or I don't know, like, what do you guys do for this R&D stuff? And these little things that really make the difference in the end on the bottom line are really great skills. And yeah, I think I mentioned it previously, but pivoting has been essential. Like I said, we started off sort of started with maritime, and then a lot of opportunity came up in agriculture. And we found that our technology translated really well to processing agriculture data. So we moved across, wrote some software, and that's where our real start was. And then it's grown from there. And then we're going back to now, because of COVID and other issues, there's a lot of opportunity in defense research and government research, stuff like that. So the same thing, we've got the solid foundational intellectual property and knowledge, which really forms, I guess, our value, that we can then apply and manipulate and pivot to other different sectors. And we found that quite useful to make sure that we're keeping on moving forward, as well as not just resting on what we've already done, but keep pushing ourselves to think differently and redo things and make sure that we're keeping on that leading edge, as well as keeping our people motivated and interested, because I think a healthy amount of stress is good for people, and I think it's you don't want to get bored. So yeah, but yeah, that's, like I said, not a pretty fast talker and not a lot on there, but they really are what we did learn, and the biggest things I can sort of pass on to people at this stage. And yeah, I'd really like to thank the Macquarie University Incubator for this opportunity, because it has been great. And like I said, love networking, love talking and meeting new people. And I definitely would rather the question answer format, because I think people get a lot more out of that than listening to me blabber on.
That was awesome, Harry. Thank you so much. Well, that was very interesting. I think you guys really captured the essence of doing tech in Australia by embedding it into the hardware and being able to cover all the remote areas that we have. That really gives you an advantage. So congratulations for that. We had a question here on the chat. You mentioned networking is pretty essential. How do you network effectively in time of COVID?
Things like LinkedIn, as well as these sort of meets, are pretty great. Like there's a lot out there, like yourselves, the incubators doing this sort of thing, are great because you can just log on and stuff like that. And it's crazy the people that come out of it. Like after this, there'll be emails and stuff going backwards and forwards. So it really is just about making the time for it. I think you can get quite lost in, okay, I've got a spare second. I could watch Netflix or I could join the incubator podcast or whatever. So it's like there's little choices there that you can make, because even though the COVID stuff is happening, there's still there's if not more online forums like this one now than there was before.
100%. Replacing bad habits for good habits is the shortest pathway, right?
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. The other question I had to ask you, Harry, you mentioned you are growing without funding, and for some startups that's pretty unreal. We know raise capital is a buzzword here in the startup world, and some of them even think it's essential that you have to. Can you unpack a little bit how that trajectory has been for Greenroom, and why did you guys choose this pathway, and what challenges did you find, or how has it been better?
Yeah, I think I guess I've got no grounds to say better or worse because I haven't done the other way yet. So I'm not really sure on sort of commenting on that one. But for us, it was lucky. I guess the issue with us is the starting point is the cash flow, and it still like any business is lying if like small to medium business is lying if they say they don't have a cash flow issue, like cash flow is a thing that they are constantly working on and making sure that they can provide. So that was a big stuff for us, but I think we we're lucky in that we could do some of the key personnel at the start had sort of temporary jobs. They were consultant programmers, so they were already making money, but they were not passionate about the work they were doing in that sort of um, micro contract sort of environment where they'd do like 5 days of programming and get X amount of dollars for some company. So that was paying the bills for them, but what they were really passionate about is this other stuff. So it was that passion there at the start that allowed to keep going, because obviously they're working for free for Greenroom for a while, but they had other money coming on the side. And it was that shared vision at the start, I think, of the founders that was really good. And engineers are the most expensive part. So you can have the best idea in the world, but developers and engineers are where the cost is in the stuff. Where all of us are developers and engineers. So we could do all the actual technical work ourselves and deliver a product without having to hire anyone else outside the group. So I think that was quite a good thing for the starting people. But yeah, like as in every situation is going to be different. Every startup's going to be different. Some ideas would need a lot of funding to get off the ground, but doing software is great because you can have a laptop and work from anywhere with an internet connection. So that's a low overhead sort of solution, I guess.
Great, thank you for sharing that. We have a question on the chat. Are you primarily robotics contractors for hire, or are you making any hardware yourselves?
We're predominantly software, like business to business software. So that's predominantly where we go, where other people have the hardware and we put our software onto that. We are getting into the space of our own hardware development. So we're working with some other Australian manufacturers, and hopefully we'll have some announcements soon coming out on our socials and LinkedIn, etc. about that if people want to have a follow. But yeah, like I said, starting off, the software was great because we got no overheads and we can all work from home, and it's great. And hardware, you got to start having a space to do production, etc., etc. So we're sort of just building up our funds, etc., so that we can start moving across into it. But at the moment, the margins and stuff are great. So I think software's fun.
Fantastic, thank you. The other point I wanted to unpack with you, Harry, you mentioned that hiring or finding people is the hardest part. So do you still get too involved on the hiring process, or you delegate that? And I suppose as the company grows, it's even harder to be involved in every position that you fill. So what's the balance there for Greenroom?
At the moment, it is just that the core players and the managers sort of all involved. We all get in and have involved in interviews and reviewing CVs / coding challenges, all that sort of stuff. But yeah, we do envision that there's going to be a tipping point somewhere, probably soon, that we're going to have to get someone in for the HR / like a herd the cats and make sure everyone's doing the right thing, etc., and manage all those policies, because that is just time that we could be developing products and stuff. But yeah, I think that's something that we're yet to experience really, is that issue, because like I said, we sort of get a project and we assemble a team and then we sort of deliver that team. So we don't have to worry about that after it's set up. We're pretty confident. We try and put a lot of trust in those teams to operate autonomously and achieve that goal.
100%, especially because hiring, I don't know about you, I'm an engineer as well, and it's one of those business skills that they don't teach you at the bachelor, right? So we have a question here from Melissa that actually connects very well with this topic. So you mentioned during your presentation, you are a startup that is driven by engineers with a board also made of engineers. So are you looking to diversify by bringing on some business focused employees?
Yes, we would be. We would be soonish. I think we've been lucky in the fact that we've got quite good like mentors and stuff like that that are more in the businessy world that have been helping out sort of pro bono. Like they've just been giving us guidance and help. But yeah, I guess at this stage we're booked up solid, and we can't really grow any more till the end of the year because we've got too much on. So we're flat out till next year. So I think next year we're going to start looking at sort of filling out the roles there. Like I said, a HRE sort of person or some business sort of minds in there to really start rounding out the team, because it'll get to the point where we can't just have a team of engineers off making stuff. Someone will make a mistake soon. So yeah, I think that's great. We've also got like good accounting friends, like high levels of different firms and things like that have just pro bono helping us out. And we it definitely sucks paying accountants and stuff like that. You can see the massive bills going out, but it's worth every cent. And even like those things, like just getting help on talking to other people that are directors and things like that helps us a lot from other companies that aren't all engineers.
That's great. So you did mention mentors quite a few times. How did you find these people? Is there a particular way that you connect with mentors, or were they coming as you grew the company, or were they introduced by the founding team? What's the way that worked best for you?
Yeah, all different sort of ways. So some people are just people that have met through life. Like maybe like one of mine still is one of my university lecturers that I have really high respect for since gone into the civilian world, but really respect the business acumen as well as the engineering. So that's a great mentor. And other ones are more formal. Like we've gone out and sought people for their skills and for that stuff like that. So yeah, I think networking leads into it as well, but it's really find people that complement the skills and like that have skills that you don't, or have experiences that you don't, and stuff like that, to get that diversity of thought in there and have things to bounce off people that they might have a huge objection to that you don't, and then you listen to their point of view. And it really helps to have those people with differing views and opinions to really round out an idea or a decision. You muted, Felipe.
Oh, that's the line of our life, right? Oh, sorry, you're on mute. And the other thing I wanted to ask you mentioned a healthy amount of stress is actually good for the team and increases productivity. How do you go about finding that right balance for your team?
I think, like I said, it comes back to a lot about the people, like having the right people there that can budget their own time and do know their own limitations. And that's the sort of, I guess, the beauty of it is, I think a lot of our stuff, it's giving those sort of long-term goals, like in 3 months, we need you to deliver this. And then that team or individuals being able to break that down to what they know they can achieve. So that challenge might be great, but having those people that can break that down to smaller chunks of what do I need to do today to get that job in 3 months done. So it's sort of seeing that and allowing them to manage it rather than trying to manage other people's stress. Everyone knows themselves best. So if someone in the team really likes sort of doing work in 3-hour blocks with a 1-hour break in the middle to play a computer game or go for a surf or a run, then that's fine. We don't mind as long as it's achieved at the end. People can manage their own stress, I think. But people also want to be challenged and developed. They don't want to be doing the same old every day. You find that everywhere, that you could be getting paid. Well, a lot of startups work for nothing, but they still do it, and they're really productive because they're passionate about it. They're feeling like they're developing something, and they feel like they're working on something that they're interested in. So I think it's a thing of picking fun, exciting jobs that aren't easy. Well, I guess if it was easy, everyone would do it. So picking something that no one else is doing, and really just enabling them to make decisions and manage their own life.
That's awesome. I have a question here on the chat. Do you have a governance board or advisory board?
Informally, yes. we do, but I guess they're more the technology governance. So I interact with them a lot, but not so much on the business side. So it's more on making sure we're up with the latest research and what's going on, as well as opportunities emerging around the country and the world. Yeah, I guess that's where they really sit, is that technology side and bringing those sort of insights.
That's very interesting. And what categories or verticals do your customers mainly come from? Do you have any particular areas or all across the board?
Yeah, it's strange. It's all across the board. So we're doing, like I said, agriculture is the foundation. We still have that running along. We provide software for the agriculture surveyors, etc. We're also working with aircraft manufacturer at the moment. Hopefully as well, we'll be releasing that. We'll be allowed to release it on LinkedIn soon, but it's a bit all covered under NDAs at the moment. But that's also developing a payload for aircraft. So that's the aviation industry. And then we're working on advanced control systems for very large drones as well for another big manufacturer. So yeah, I guess there's a few different things. And we're in advanced talks with some other projects in maritime, subsea, and hopefully soon we'll be in some talks for space stuff. So like I said, we're not really cared about the domain. We're just keen to solve problems that are in those sort of hard connectivity areas or really large data. So sort of getting those really good insights out of data is really where we shine. So yeah, and doing it all in-house as well. So it's sort of low overheads.
That's a very, very interesting mindset. Thank you, Harry. And the other thing I saw on LinkedIn, a post recently that you were involved in the team, decided to take a 24-hour break and work on R&D and work on a prototype. And that's something that you do often. So you mentioned that you guys are also flat out into next year. So then how do you go about balancing, the current commitments versus, okay, let's take some time off and work on a project that we all like and to develop something new? So how do you go about balancing these things and embedding that into your culture?
Yeah, I think we're in a good spot to do that 24-hour because we're ahead on a few of our projects. So we had some time up our sleeve, and really I think it's like there's that picture of the two guys pushing a cart that had square wheels, and someone's holding up a round wheel saying, "What about this?" Like, no, we're too busy. We can't. We don't think, like, you're never too busy. Like, it's if you don't improve your processes and your foundations and your pipelines, then you can never actually improve. So we think it's really important to take a step back and validate your internal processes and make sure that everything's flowing as efficiently as we can at this time, and do that properly. So that was the idea of that, was that, okay, let's stop, let's double check, let's find any sticking points and fix them over the next few days, so that when we get to the next iteration of our project, we're in a better position to do that faster again as well. So I think it's really about that sort of the big picture stuff about, okay, where are we trying to be and what's the value we're providing and how do we improve and get more out of that value. Yeah, I think it's definitely important.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And on improving those processes, I have a question on the chat. How are you incorporating ethics into your development ethos? Because there's a lot of considerations when it comes to data and hardware, and when you talk about military technology and surveillance and all those things. So is this something that you constantly talk about?
Yes, yeah. Our whole team has we do have a lot of discussions about them. We don't yet have defense projects going, anything like that. But yeah, I think that 100% the ethics is going to be a big conversation for a long time until this is mainstream. I know that there's been a lot of the government departments release their guidelines on artificial intelligence ethics. So we try to follow that where possible. It's quite a broad one, but it's good. It sort of just states the obvious, but it's a good way to sort of step through and say, okay, if we accept this, what are we doing? I think we've been really lucky that a lot of the opportunities have been, from our perspective, like quite ethical projects. Like we've done like things we're trying to do at the moment, make some products to detect whales to avoid them from getting hurt from ships and things like that. And there's been agriculture, which has been monitoring national parks to see how much pests are in there, like invasive species, and counting them and doing things like that. So we've been quite lucky that we haven't really come across a huge big, wait, should we do this because of ethics situation as yet. But I think, like I said, I think we've got a lot of people, different backgrounds and differing, like the diversity of thought, which I think is a really important diversity in a company. It doesn't matter about whose background, it's having that people with different ways of thinking and different mindsets and different views on the world are really important, because you can have these sort of discussions. And I guess that's really what ethics is. It's that discussion on what's good and bad. So having those people that do have that different diversity of thought is always really important. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%, and also staying true to your values. That's very interesting. Thank you. A question a bit different from the others that we've been asking. So, how do you think Australia is positioned for growth when it comes to robotic and machine learning? Do you think we have some sort of advantage, or are we still falling behind in relation to what's out there? And what's your opinion on that sector?
I think we are well positioned. I think we produce quite a high, like the graduates we produce are quite like highly. Like I said, it is hard to hire, but that's partially because there's a lot of choice. There's so many people in the market, which could be also construed as a good or bad thing. That so many people are around and available and looking for work. But I think we are well positioned. I think the government is really pushing for it. I know the Queensland government, especially, is looking to become a center of excellence for this sort of stuff. So they've just released a dedicated airfield for UAVs development. So the whole airfield run by Kinetic out in country Queensland, because it's so much space, that's just dedicated for startups, companies to go and test their UAV technology without the need for exemptions and all that sort of stuff. And they're looking. I think I would be surprised if they don't start opening up other domains like surface, subsurface, land. So like they're really looking at getting that, and they've got the Trusted Autonomous Systems Cooperative Research Council. Is based in Queensland now, and they're looking at this sort of space. So the ethics of AI and ethical, all that sort of things, they're based in Queensland. So there's a lot of these things popping up, and a lot of these industries as well in all domains are figuring out that like it really is beneficial to invest in sort of the automation space, because it improves the safety, but it also you can get rid of the boring, mundane, repetitive tasks that people don't really like doing, whether that be like for us, especially looking through footage. So it's just crazy that we think that people put up a drone and then spent exactly the same amount of time the drone was up reviewing the footage and writing on a notepad and developing and stuff, when we can write software can do that in a day. So yeah, it's really like replacing that stuff. And I think Australia is well positioned to do that. That sort of that replacement or augmentation of existing stuff to improve safety, but also profits. I think a lot of stuff's actually going to be safety rather than profits. I think profits are always going to prevail in big industries and stuff. I think it's just the fact of how it all works. But especially shipping is a big one, where they're realizing that this sort of augmentation, if you look at the stats, is over 93% of maritime incidents are human error. So you look at the Mauritius, the shipping container that went aground recently, that was completely avoidable. That wasn't an engineering failure or a thing else, complete human failure. So, and there's countless incidences. So if we can make a little automation or provide the crew with more information by automated like object detection or avoidance, etc., that provides the captain or the person driving the ship with better information so they can make better decisions and improve safety, then everyone's still got their jobs, plus they're doing it safer. So they might not make more money, but they avoid huge incidents where that company might go now completely under, or probably will, because of all the costs associated with this one mistake. So yeah, I think Australia is really good, because we're definitely the kings of bureaucracy and safety protocols as Australia. So yeah, I think we're the most in the world. So I think if we can do it here, we can do it anywhere.
Yeah, that makes sense. So we're not only well positioned, but also there's lots of opportunities there. That's great. And from all those like choices that you mentioned on the hiring process, do you get lots of female applying to your roles, or not so much?
Yeah, we get a. I actually don't know the statistics about it, but there's been a healthy amount. Yeah, I guess I come to think of it, but I guess about maybe a little bit less than half would be female applicants, I guess. But like again, like they bring like people of all different like gender, race, orientation, anything. There's a different thought, which is great. And I think it's as like I said, we're really just looking for the performance of the people and that willingness to be a self starter and a self learner.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much. So I have a few words for the audience, but just wanted to thank you first for sharing, all your learnings, Green Room story, really, really inspiring. We hope you guys continue to do very well. Do you have any messages that you want to wrap up with, or?
No, just saying that I'm happy to, people want to email or email me, just harry@greenroomrobotics.com is my best email. I'm happy to answer questions and help out where I can. Yeah, I try to get back to people within the 24 hours, but yeah, it's been crazy time. But yeah, definitely like talking to people, and happy to help out, give advice / bounce ideas off. Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you. So for everyone here, stay tuned. We have these Leaders, Innovations, and Disruptors series monthly. The next one is going to be in September with Richard Kimber, CEO and founder of Daisy, another very interesting insurtech startup, and also Macquarie alumni. We'll send you information about that. Oh, one thing I missed here, Harry. People are asking about the podcast. Do you have any names or recommendations there?
Oh, I will have to get back to you. I haven't heard off the name. The Stanford University Business School ones are pretty good. They're pretty funny actually, as well. Some of them.
I'll take the homework then, and I'll email the audience once I get it from you.
Yeah, even it's like the TED Talks Business are quite good. Yeah, or TED Talks Innovation as well are quite good.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much, everyone. I hope you found it as insightful as we did, and it was great to have you here, Harry. See you next time.
Thanks so much. See you later, guys.